Hey, welcome to the TVB channel, and today I have with me Marcus from Geekstack to actually just go through what we feel about the whole Shy, which is upcoming this coming Friday. Alright, so we have a deck list here ready for you guys, and of course we're going to start off with playing 10 zeros. Okay, so maybe before we dive into the deck itself, would you, Marcus, be able to share with me what do you think of this deck? What are the first impressions?
I mean, it's a new mechanic where there's healing involved. Of course, there are other card games that we played before that there's healing mechanism, and they tend to kind of break the game a little. But I guess the healing here has been a bit controlled because you're not allowed to heal cards that has trigger. So it kind of help balance that mechanism, you know.
But I definitely do agree with you when healing is introduced to the game, especially for Bandai games, right? Yellow Hybrid in Digimon, Yellow in One Piece. It really skews the game in general, but of course they try to nerf it here with just making it a non-trigger. But we shall see. Let's dive right into the first zero first, which is Shy herself. A vanilla with just a 2k. It does have a trigger though with an active 3k. And there's actually other cards to consider. So which I believe it was a 0, which is this one. Right, basically the generic energy one. So why do you think we actually don't play this card?
I feel that such a card, first thing is lacking the trait, because as a deck, I think we should first dive into maybe the rate to show people the effect. You know, because if not, what we are saying might not understand. So
let's of course look at the main card, which is Lady Black herself. So on play, draw one card. If your life is 6 or less, place up to one trait hero card without trigger from your hand to your life area face up.
Yeah, which is actually now back to the point of why not to play that 0. Firstly, the 0 doesn't have a hero trait, even though yes, it fulfills the no trigger, but in a sense when you're playing such a deck, you want to have ammos that can be used as the healing fodder.
Right.
You know, so this card don't fulfill the condition, but at the same time, the Shy 0 cost 2k don't fulfill it as well. However, when we were to look at both of them objectively, this is a 2k, so it kind of helps cover a little bit more. At least it can block 1.5k, or it can be used for early aggression. And of course, every once in a while, active trigger might help the deck, you know.
Yep. Why would you want to deny all yourself off more triggers, right?
Yeah, if that 0 cost can't even be used to heal as a fodder, I might as well just play a card with trigger. You know, that kind of idea.
Okay, so we move on to the next card. It's basically Lady Black herself, Pleats. So on play, there's another hero on your area. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Place any number cards of them to the top of your deck in any order, and then place the remaining at the bottom of your deck in any order. So basically a free scry at a 0 cost at 1.5.
And a no trigger and a hero. So these are cards that actually can act as the healing fodder. At the same time, the ability to cycle through the deck helps this deck see into the key cards. Because if in one game you can see 4 Lady Black Red, which is the card we saw just now, it's as good as you playing the game with 11 life.
Right. And of course, there's a reason why they actually scry, because they do actually have cards that synergize with the whole scry synergy. So we obviously have this double energy first, alright, Pepe Sharp, also treated as spirits. Activate main resist card once per turn. You and your opponent look at top card of your deck and place that card to the top card of the deck. If that card had no trigger, you and your opponent may review it and add it to your hand. So what we imagine is a 3+1 if you actually scry properly and then put it on top.
Yes, definitely. I think the whole idea is that when it comes to this kind of 11 life kind of, you know, having more life situation, I think it might feel like a bait also, because your 11 life is not exactly 11 life with triggers. You are going to deal with 4 of them that is non-trigger. But in a sense, you can take it as this deck, right, will allow you to build your energy first, which can let you play towards the 5 cost spirit. Because most of the time in a normal game situation, if let's say you were to go second, right, you will have a weird energy situation such that you will have 3 cards at the energy line and 1 card in the front line. But this deck allows you to, oh, it's okay, I can just build my energy line, and if I hit the first line, subsequently I can still heal with Lady Black. So it's like you are making up for that.
You won't be forced to a situation whereby you need to have 4 bodies in front always, and then getting threatened little by your opponent.
Yeah, correct.
Right. So of course the next card that we of course look at it that actually benefit from the scry is basically this card called Spirits. So once per turn, activate main when in front line, look at top card of your deck, place a card to the top of your deck. If the look card was actually a trait hero without trigger, you may review it. And if you did this character, gain plus 1k and damage 2 until end of turn, and then of course you place the top card to the deck. It doesn't have a trigger, so it definitely helps towards the whole hero for Lady Black, and it's just a very beefy attacker.
Yeah, right. And generally the effect, how I would see it is, it helps you check your top card for free.
Yes.
So like, before you do anything, you can always play this kind of check for free before you know if you want to commit to a second play. Like, maybe let's say now I have a card that allows me to put a card to the top of the deck. But alternatively, I can play this card to just check the top of my deck. And if I fulfill it, I don't have to do any other additional step.
Correct. And then if you like it, you can always just use this card again to just add it to your hand as well.
It's just a free look because it's an activate main.
Then of course you have the color trigger from Lady Black. Alright, look at the top card of your deck and place it on top of your deck. If the card has no trigger, you may review it and add it to hand when attacking. So an additional plus, and it's a color trigger, so obviously you're going to play 4 of these.
Yeah.
And it's 4k body, so that's actually a very good complement to the whole deck as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so of course having said all these scry cards, let's just go back to the zeros and really understand how this deck really plays out. So for the deck 0, we have this card is treated as spirits. On play, there's another trade hero card on your area, draw 1 card and place 1 card to the outside area. And it's actually a 2k body.
This is essentially just a very good draw 1, drop 1. Most of the time draw 1, drop 1s are 1.5k, but they come with a draw trigger. However, as this deck plays without really any trigger, just like the Dorothy deck in that sense. So this kind of card is definitely welcome. Though one of the things that you will want to take note is that you can't play it immediately, you know? Like usually the 0 cost card, the draw 1, they are the first card you play because you might want to cycle into some things. But this is telling you that, hey, this is probably better to be played as the second card. Maybe this deck will have advantage if they go second. I mean,
yeah. So it does benefit a lot more if you have another card. Basically, you need the extra EP at the start. Yeah. But I think, you know, it being a good stats is actually just...
Which kind of boils down why we chose the 0 cost 2k with active instead of the 0 cost generate energy. Because we want the hero trait.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we move on to the next card, which is basically Lady Black again. So your turn when this card is reviewed from your deck, you can actually choose up to 1 hero card on your area and give it plus 1k and impact plus 1. You can only activate Please effect once per turn. So it is a Lady Black base rate, and it's a hero trait, there's no trigger, and it does benefit from being scribed. So this card really complements it well, and it being at 1 energy and 2k, it's actually a very decent bridge for this whole deck ratio in general. Okay? Next we have a spicy, I would say, preference. Basically spirits, on play just draw 1. So this kind of generic draw 1 cards usually don't really see play in every other deck. I mean it's good, but usually opponent, or rather when we decide on deck list, we really want to consider a trigger. And this deck just happens to benefit from not playing triggers. And it does have a hero trait as well.
I feel you're right about all this, but on top of that, the key thing is that this deck actually eats a lot of hand size. So the Lady Black skill where you heal, you're actually taking cards from your hand. So this kind of card where on play draw 1, it's a 1-1 situation, you know, so you end up become netting off. Your hand size remain the same. You know, you -1 but you +1. So cards like this will actually help benefit you as you progress through the game in terms of building the energy, and at the same time still maintaining your hand size. Because we don't really have draw triggers to benefit from. So which means first of all we're lacking the draw power, and yet we have to keep healing. So definitely there are cards that boost the draw power on top of this card, which was the 4-1 color. When you attack, you can take the card, and that is why the 3-1 double energy is also quite a crucial card. The Pepesha that is 3 energy. That is the best way to ensure that you still have a hand size.
And I think one more plus point for this card especially is that it's actually a red target as well. Alright, so it's a red target for these spirits. So let's just go through it roughly. On play, choose up to 1 of your opponent character in front line with BP 4k or less and return it to hand. Sounds very familiar to one of the strongest cards in the game. And activate main once per turn and place 1 trade hero card without trigger from your hand to the outside area. And if you did, this character gain impact +1. So it's just impact 1. So it's an impact 1 card. Of course it's 5 energy, but it brings about Sukuna and Yuji.
Yeah, it's like a fusion of both of them, just that they kind of nerfed it with that.
Yes.
Instead of a 4 energy, it's a 5 energy. You know, you'll be surprised that 1 energy between 4 and 5 is quite big, you know.
Yes, especially in the game of UA. And what's interesting is that actually you can pair well with this Lady Black. And of course, if you were to be able to scry, you know, the same turn, it actually becomes an impact 2 in that 1 turn.
Though usually impact 2 without a double damage don't really give like that effect of just don't block.
Yeah, opponent just don't block. But you know, some opponent might not be able to catch that. But of course, in the same turn, if you have this, and as well as the red, you do have this very strong damage 2, impact 2 kind of nonsense.
Yeah, definitely. That card definitely benefit the 4-1-4 with the double damage.
Right.
Because that will give off that effect that we're looking for already.
Alright, so we move on to the next card first. Basically, it's just Lady Black herself.
Actually,
and a double
this
energy.
card is actually quite a strong card. So why would I say so is, essentially it's telling you any cards that come from your life can potentially go back to the top of your deck. Because majority of the cards that you play are triggerless, especially that 1 cost plus 1k impact 1.
Yep.
The pleats. These pleats that you want to see from the top of your deck the most would play very well with this 3-1 double energy. Because even if you trigger it from life, that's giving you the access to put it to the top of your deck already.
Yes. And I actually thought about one more thing as well. So you can actually use more than 4 Lady Blacks if you want. Because you can actually put just one trade hero from outside area to the top of the deck. So you can actually have more Lady Blacks and basically you're playing more than 11 lives in this game.
Yeah, which is actually very good. However, like we said, it's always about the hand size at the end of the day.
Yep.
Though Lady Black do give you that draw 1 card, you know, so you don't really lose too much also. Yeah, so not too bad I guess in terms of hand size.
Okay, so then we of course wrap it up with just the 4 final and 4 special. So overall my take, or rather I'll just give my opinion first. How I feel about this deck is actually a very good deck in terms of how the deck really works. In terms of introducing a new heal life mechanic, it has Yuji and Sukuna in one. So there's the reason why it's a tier 1 deck, you know, which everyone respects. And then it has a decent 4k bodies. It also have decent double energies that you don't play not because you don't have double energy, but you play because they are the core of the deck as well. So it really just gives off the whole I'm Yuji, right? And you don't actually have to play extra events just to compensate for the deck as well, because usually it ruins ratio. And I overall have a very good feeling that this deck will definitely rise to the top.
Yeah, I share the same sentiments. I mean, the key idea behind 2 color set is always they have better card pool quality.
Yeah.
Right. So definitely shy for the blue wise. We are seeing great quality in terms of the card, which is for Lady Black. So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, healing. One way to see healing is you don't have to give a body away.
Right.
Another way to see it is when there's aggression, you can always begin the game at equal ground again. Because it's a kind of a math thing. I have 7 life, opponent has 7 life. He minus me 1, then back to my turn, I plus 1, then I minus 1 him. Now I have the life advantage. You know, that kind of math. So this kind of card play very well to that math. And if you were to special this card, or it kind of feels very ironic as well, because the 3-1 double energy Lady Black allows you to put it back, so you're giving the opponent a chance to heal again.
Yeah, so definitely this deck has a lot of potential, and really looking forward to it.
Yeah,
okay,
I think
so
the key thing is just for this deck is if they don't see that 3-1 double energy, that pushback card, I guess there will be quite a lot of combos that might be missing.
Yeah, so I mean, one point that you really can point out is that it doesn't really draw into the deck, right? It scries, but it doesn't draw. So if you don't, and it doesn't have any searcher pieces as well. So you're really basically just playing top decking every time. So I think that's probably one of the weaknesses of this deck as compared to UG, which has a bunch of draw triggers built in. So I think there's a bit of a consistency issue sometimes for this deck.
Well, but if you think about it on the flip side, there's a lot of things you want to trigger from the life. This deck has many cards that if they see from life will be very welcome, like Lady Black. I think one of the things that we can put up for contention is if you are at 0 life, do you heal Lady Black before you conclude the fight? You know, that kind of idea? Like, if I trigger Lady Black as my last life, do I get a heal?
I would say you do activate the trigger, the raid, and then you gain 1 life, and then they check for your life at the end. So I would say this act as a special final as well. You know, no pun intended, it's actually a final. So you do play 8 final in this deck for the last life. So it's actually pretty nice. And if opponent really thinks they have little and they start pushing you aggressively, you can actually use this at your second life and then you gain 1 life anyway. And opponent will just be like, oh, then they might actually lose from the end. Okay? So this deck doesn't have triggers. But what we're going to visit in the other side of the blue have a bunch of triggers. Alright, so let's dive right into that as well. Alright, so apologies for this second half of the video because the audio actually had some trouble, so I actually had to redo it without Marcus this time. So let's just dive right into the deck list itself. So this is basically the other archetype and I will call it the villain. It's easier to pronounce and of course for myself. Okay, so starting off with the 0 cost, alright, we have Keihe. So activate main when in front line once per turn. When a card from your life area is placed outside the field, you can actually draw 1 card. So in that case, if you do that, you put 1 card in your hand outside the field. So essentially a free cycle whenever you eat a life, and it has to be in the front line. Okay, so it's a very good early aggression turn, and of course it's a red target. So there's nothing not to like about this card, except the fact that it doesn't have a trigger here. Alright, so we're gonna move on to our second zeros, which is basically a vanilla. Having the trigger drawing 1 and of course 2000 BP, and the draw 1 is definitely the nature of this deck, and we will dive right into why that's so. Alright, so next we do have the other red target, Sveta. So basically just a simple get trigger, but it's a 0. You do have to play your zeros for consistency, and of course it's a red target, like I said just now. Okay, so next we do have the next card called Stigma. On play, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. From among them, review up to 1 trait of the villain, basically the Amariruku. Add it to your hand, and then if you added a card, you must discard 1. So a very typical searcher. But however, it does have the draw trigger. Very nice, and it does have a 500 BP nerf. Honestly, it doesn't really matter because in the most matchups, the 2Ks don't really do too much, especially after turn 2. Because your opponent will just set up bodies in front and you have guarded it very well already. So having a draw trigger attached to a searcher is really some God bless stuff. Alright. So next we're gonna play the just a generic active energy card. Main reason is because this Decklists doesn't actually run comfortable double energies, right? So the other double energy in this deck is actually just the Kehehe, and there's no other good double energy card, so you do want to play the vanilla to ensure the consistency, even though this deck, the highest cost you're going to have is just at 4 energy. Alright, next we do have Kehehe. So once per turn, or rather during your turn, if you use an event card during this turn, this character gains this character cannot be blocked by characters with 3000 BP or less. Now, on paper, it does seem a bit weak, right? Because in the late game, 4Ks are just the best stats to have on the board. And what can this actually prevent from blocking? And you know, there's a card that I'm going to dive right in after this to share with you why this card is going to be viable in the late game as well. And of course, it does have the draw trigger. Okay, so draw triggers is just extensive in this deck. So they're going to just jump straight into the card. And it's called Sveta, basically the red target. If there's no trait hero on your area on play, all characters on your opponent frontline with 1.5k BP or higher gets minus 1k. So effectively turning all the 4Ks into a 3k, and then the Kehehe will basically make them unblockable. And that's going to be very headache for your opponent especially. Alright, and the second effect, alright, activate main when you're in frontline. You can activate if you use the event card during this turn, choose one character on your opponent frontline and rest it. You can only activate this Sveta effect once per turn. So you do really need to play with more events in this deck to actually activate this Sveta effect reliably. But however, if you look at it, the effect is such a free cost because you're playing an event which can be a special or a final which you're already playing in your deck, and then you can actually further rest one of your opponent cards, making them just very vulnerable to your aggression, and it can even be an endgame settler. Alright, so before we dive right into the more spicy cards, let's just continue the deck list first. We're going to run 4 Kehehe, the double energy one. Alright, so on play, look at top 4 cards of your deck. From among them, review up to 1 blue event card and add it to your hand, and then put the rest to your bottom deck. Then if you added a card, place 1 card from your hand to the outside area. So just an event searcher, but it can actually pick up a final or a special. So that's what's interesting about this card, because you are not hard restricting yourself and able to find your final and your special in a game like this where you can extend your play or control your opponent board. It does add that kind of consistency that you really want, and let's not forget, it does have a draw trigger as well. Okay, so we're going to move on to the area why the draw trigger really matters. So starting off with the Kehehe red card. Alright, during your opponent turn, when in the front line, when you do place a card with draw trigger from your life area to the outside area, this character gets plus 2k BP during this turn. So you'll be a 6k blocker, and 6k usually can guard against your opponent pretty well. Alright, and of course it does have a second ability. On play, draw 1 card and place 1 card from your hand to the outside area. If there's no trait hero card on your area, reduce the AP cost of the next event card you use from your hand by 1. So effectively making final 0 cost, and of course making special 0 cost, and then pairing very well with the Sveta, like I mentioned just now. The next card, the Sveta. Right, so once per turn during the opponent turn once again, when draw trigger do get activated on your life area, you may place 1 card from your hand to the outside area. So if you did, you choose out to 1 character on your opponent front line and just rest it. So basically effective yellow color trigger, and it does have a very decent stats of 4K as well. So you don't really mind putting this onto the field. You don't mind it being in the live because it's a color trigger. And when you do activate the draw trigger, you actually draw one. So you can place that card you draw into the outside area, effectively making this a free cost, and of course making sure that your opponent tilt at the worst case scenario. Okay, so of course we play the standard 4 finals and 4 special, and here comes the tech cards, right? So we are going to play this Crystal of the Heart. So you can add up to 1 trait of the villain card from your outside area to your hand, and if there's no trait hero card on your hand, on your area, sorry, you do draw 1 card. So another draw trigger. So if I'm not mistaken, for this deck ratio, they are running about 24 draw triggers. So you do have a very good 50% chance to activate draw triggers in every live check you do. And of course, this allows you to really replenish the rates, right? Because your raid target or even your Sveta will going to be prime targets for the special, because opponent really don't want to deal with the rest. Of course, don't want to deal with the 6k body. And let's not forget the Sveta is very good offensively as well. So your raid targets is most likely going to be in the trash. And then having this card, Crystal of the Heart, really allows you to pick them up. And of course, we're going to play the other tech card, which is basically the draw 1 card. And of course, choose one of your opponent front line with 3k BP or less and move it to the energy line. So if you pair it with Sveta, you can actually minus 1k on your opponent's board, making your opponent's 4k bodies a prime target for you to rest as well. And of course, to move to the energy line. So imagine, just 1 event card makes your opponent lose 2 bodies at once. And that's actually pretty insane, if you ask me. And of course, there are a lot of event cards you can actually consider. So one of the event cards that one can consider to play is definitely this event card. Alright, so it's called You Can't Stop Me. So basically, just choose 1 trait Ama Ruku on your area, and just it gains 2000 BP and impact +1. Alright, so basically, impact +1, or rather impact 1 in general, is usually the stable, reliable game ender, and this deck actually lacks all of them. Right, so if you are interested, you can actually play that card, and let's not forget it's a draw trigger as well. So that's really a card that is meant to be played, but of course I really prefer the value that you can get from all these cards instead. And of course, the other event that you can consider to play is actually this human-shaped toy box. So basically draw 2 cards, play up to 1 each KA and Sveta require energy 4 or less, a cost of 1 from your hand to area rested or raided. So another draw trigger, but however the card that has some concerns to it is basically the AP2. The action 2 really makes it slightly harder and less consistent, but given what you can do, basically you're drawing 2 cards, which is basically 2 AP, and playing 2 more cards is 4 AP. You're getting I would say 100% discount in the things that you're gonna do. So this card can actually see play if you're really playing towards that value town kind of play style. Alright, and the other cards you can actually consider to play is actually the Vanilla's, basically the Eco, 1 cost 2.5k Vanilla with the draw trigger, the 2 cost 3k impact negate draw trigger as well. So there's one card that actually I think people might ask me why they actually don't play it, or rather why I don't play it, is basically this Sveta 3 cost. Activate main, when in frontline, rest this card. Once per turn, you can only be activated if you use the event card, you draw 1 card. So right off the bat, this card really need to be activated with an event card, and you're actually required to rest it in the front line. So basically, you can't attack and draw at the same time. So it really removes the offensiveness of it. And because you do really need an event to actually even activate this skill in the first place, really makes it so that it's not going to be consistently drawing you cards every turn. But one can argue that it does have a draw trigger, so it's always good to have more draw triggers. And let's not forget that it does have the Sveta name, so basically you can rate on it more consistently for your 4 costs. Now this will be the deck list if you guys are interested in. And this will be the other deck list if you guys are interested in as well. Thank you guys for watching till the end, and do consider subscribing, dropping a like and a comment if you guys do enjoy the content.